Well, welcome back once again to another reading from the Science of Mind magazine, Daily Guides, plus a little bit extra. I was thinking this afternoon, yeah, it happens sometimes. Actually, I was up at Lone Star College presenting parts of my ideas for my new class. I teach world religions several times a year at Lone Star College, and today was an open house. So people were coming up and asking me about what the class was all about, and then they were signing up for it, which was kind of cool. I was thinking as we left there that, well, sometimes we take life too seriously. And I think I've mentioned this before, my wife loves to tell jokes to either the cashiers or the people checking you out at places like Costco and Sam's Club. And this is a little joke that she came across, and I thought I'd just share it. Because, as I said, we just take life too seriously sometimes. So, and it's kind of in a way, it's kind of a spiritual joke, in a way. And I'm reading this as we go through. A German Shepherd, a Doberman, and a cat have died. All three are faced with God, who wants to know what they believe in. The German Shepherd says, I believe in discipline, training, and loyalty. Good, says God. Then sit down at my right-hand side. Doberman, what do you believe in? Asked God. The Doberman answers, I believe in the love, the care, and the protection of my master. Aha, said God, you may sit to my left. Then he looks at the cat and asks, and what do you believe in? The cat then answers, I believe you're sitting in my seat. So I kind of like that. I know it's kind of wacky, but there we are. I actually heard the thing about taking life too seriously from Mayoki Kim Barrett, who is she's a Buddhist bishop. She lives in Houston. She's also a practitioner with Creative Life Spiritual Center, and she manages to make those two things work. And when I took a class with her on modern mystics, she said, well, we often take meditation too seriously. So lighten up. Well, I'm attempting to lighten up our readings. Now, to get back on track, or maybe we're always on track, I don't know. Here is what Reverend Marilyn has to say today. She's called it God's Ideas Run Rampant. God's Ideas Run Rampant. One of the chief barriers to accepting God's generosity is our limited notion of what we are in fact able to accomplish. And that was Julia Cameron in The Artist's Way. The Artist's Way, Julia Cameron. Holmes in 365 Science of Mind, page 223, says, since God is all there is, the only presence, the only power, and the only mind or intelligence, when we conceive a new idea, we are thinking directly from the creativity of God. And as I said, that was from Ernest Holmes, 365 Science of Mind on page 223. Reverend Marilyn says, we are the instrument through which God's creativity takes place. Just yesterday, she said, my daughter was fixing a plugged sink for me. She disconnected a couple of parts and cleaned out the accumulated hair that is usually the culprit. When she tried to put things back together, she didn't have the tools to hold one part in place to fit the other. So she left it for the time being. Sure enough, a few minutes later, she came up with the idea to hold one apart with thread while placing the other one in place. Creativity is not always about writing or painting or creating music. It's about ideas. The creativity of mind is magnificent. Just letting go or stepping back allows ideas to form and knock on your door of thought. Be ready to hear the knock and to open the door of your imagination. As we avail our thoughts, our imagination, to be still and listen, many ideas come forth. Perhaps some may seem to have no relevance to your immediate circumstances, but keep an open mind. Listen to the words that come to you. Listen for the ideas. If there appears to be nothing coming to you at the moment, you may be best served by just letting go. Often, while we're doing some chore, an idea comes forth. Very often, a completely different idea may wake you during the night or first thing in the morning. Just allow yourself to be open to ideas of any kind. One day, one or more may be very useful to you. Keeping a journal is a wonderful way to remember these useful or seemingly useless ideas. You just never know. And how often have you been trying to remember something? I know I have. I've been really striving to remember something, and it's right there. It's on the tip of your tongue, the forefront of your brain, but it won't just quite come forward. So then you turn aside and you do something completely different, and boom, the idea just pops in. A little bit like this. She recommends keeping a journal of ideas. I think it's a good idea. I don't know if I'm actually disciplined enough to do that, to be honest with you. I also remember being told that if you're somebody who speaks in public quite a bit, and I guess Reverend Lisa does, I do, Danielle Mercadal does sometimes, Reverend Jesse does it all the time. It's a good idea, I know, to actually have some way of jotting down these ideas when they come to you, thinking, oh, gee, that's a great idea for a speech, or a great idea for a Sunday talk, or a great idea to use during the week on these talks. Jot it down. I don't do it, and probably I ought to do it. In fact, I'm going to see if I can find some way to easily do that. I did it for a while, and the way I did it was I would dictate things into my phone and keep them as a recording and then just play it back. It's even easier now because back then, we're only going back 5 or 7 years, maybe a little bit more. Pandemics made things kind of hard to judge, right? It's even easier now because you can actually open an app like on the Mac, Notes, on an Android, the equivalent. And so you can pick up your iPhone, your Android, and you can actually dictate text into them. You can dictate text into your computer. But since these ideas are kind of coming at random, I think maybe I'm going to see if I can actually discipline myself to do that. When ideas come in, is take out my phone and just record it in writing in some app that's got notes or equivalent to notes like that. So maybe that's something that you could do when you're going along. So this is really a practical lesson. Is it spiritual? Everything's spiritual. Is it a seriously spiritual candles light type of lesson? No, it's not. But it is spiritual because everything's spiritual. As she said, everything comes from the mind of God. As Holmes said, everything comes from the mind of God. So let's adopt this as a spiritual practice. That in whatever way we choose, when ideas come to us, let's find some way to jot them down before we forget them. Because as you know, and I know, if you don't do it fairly quickly, boom, it's gone, and you're thinking, what was that thing I was thinking about an hour ago? And I said, oh my God, what was it? It's gone. Maybe your memory's a lot better than mine. I don't know. Maybe you got an eidetic memory, which means you remember everything. I don't know. So anyway, this is our spiritual practice. Give it a shot. Find some way to record ideas when they come up, whether they're for paintings, for a talk, or for a plumbing job. It really doesn't matter. Just ideas come into mind, jot them down. And that fits right in with the affirmation, where she says, today I listen with an open-minded heart for Spirit's response to my needs. Today I listen with an open heart and mind to Spirit's response to my needs. So this is your work to do for the next day, and then the day after that, and the day after that. And I'm going to see if I can also do it, because there's lots and lots of different answers to how long it takes to create a habit. And this is what we're talking about creating. Some people say 7 days, some say 21 days, some say 42 days. I don't know what the real answer is, but I do know this, that if we start getting in the habit of writing things down, recording things, eventually it becomes second nature. Like when you jump in your car, you don't have to think about how to drive it. You know how to drive it. If you're coming out of the driveway and you're pointing towards the garage, you know how to stick the car in reverse and just go by it, you know, to check the mirror and the side view mirrors just to make sure there's nobody there. If you have a backup camera, you're checking that. I mean, you do these things instinctively. So the idea is to begin to instinctively start to record ideas as they come up. How's that? Does it sound good? Well, I hope so. So just know with me, to bring this all to a conclusion, that the light of God surrounds us, and the love of God enfolds us, and the power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Why? Because everywhere that we are, God is, and all is well. So go forth as messengers of love, of light, of recording new ideas. Namaste.